So Vedas are essentially a unwritten document just heard by people and later on scripted. Smriti is based on the Vedas. So Bhagavad Gita is entirely Vedic. There's nothing that is non-Vedic about Bhagavad Gita. In fact, it's such a brilliant scripture that we have. It really is the scripture that everybody can use because it's very practical in its nature and more user friendly for application purposes. But it's written by a human author. Therefore, it is called Smriti and has a lesser grade of value, though entire information that you get in Bhagavad Gita are based on the Vedas. Brahma Sutra are aphorisms. Basically, Vedas, because it's an accumulation of knowledge of so many people, which they imparted to several other people who heard them, there's a lot of jumbling of things in the Vedas, not clear for normal human beings to understand. Therefore, the author of Bhagavad Gita also took the pains to do this another scripture called the Brahma Sutra, more straightforward in nature, releasing all the confusions and complications of the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita itself is full of contradictions, apparent contradictions, because the two verses, one following the other, will talk exactly contradicting to each other. And therefore, it appears to be not straightforward, contradicting. But it's not really contradicting. It's the question of understanding it correctly. And if you understand it correctly, the contradiction will go. But still, there is a contradiction. Because a lot of people I know tried to learn Bhagavad Gita through translations that are available. And translations are straightforward translations of the Sanskrit language. You can't understand the contradiction, why there is a contradiction or the apparent contradiction. You need to get that completely understood. And that's where a good guru who knows the Bhagavad Gita well can help you understand Bhagavad Gita, which is such a brilliant script according to me. Prakarana Grantham is also written by human beings. So therefore, the three are Prasthanatari and fourth one is also going to help us understand the Vedas. We now talk about the Indian philosophical system. So if you see here that we have 12 philosophies in Indian context. 6 are considered to be accepting Vedas as the authorities, and 6 do not consider Vedas as authorities. It does not mean they are of lesser value at all. They all have their own values. It's just that one does not accept Vedas as the authority. So you cannot censure Buddhism, Jainism, or Charvak. We must understand that. So the 6 Vedic philosophies are called Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaiseshika, and Mimamsa, and Vedanta. These are the 6 Vedic-based philosophies. And the Avedic, which are Nastika philosophy, are Buddhism. There are 4 parts to Buddhism, 1 Jainism, and Charvakam. So these are the 12 philosophies that we have in Indian philosophical system. We call it as darshan. Next, important to note that every philosophy is expected to deal with 6 subject matter for sure. And if they do not have the information or ideas without contradictions, meaning if I present this idea, nobody in this world can say this is not acceptable to me. That's called non-contradictory kind of knowledge. If it contradicts, if someone in the world somewhere looks at this philosophy and finds something is not complete, then it is not classified as a good philosophy. So therefore, it must address 6 important features, and they are: who is this individual called Jiva? Who are you and me? We must know who we are. That is the understanding of the individual. Then, what is this world in which we live? What does it consist really of? Then, the big, most contradictory point called the Ishvara or God. I don't think there is any word in this world which has been decimated so badly as the word called God. Belief, no belief, half belief, full belief, tremendous amount of thinking going on about this word called God. Then we have to talk about bondage. Why are we in this bondage? If you really sit back and see, you want freedom, but everything that you do binds you. Isn't that amazing? Everything, I can tell you, every action that you do will bind you. So you have to understand, what is this binding? What does it really do when you're bound? Moksha. How do you get out of this? What is this liberation? What is this liberation? How can we really, as human beings, get out of this bondage? We must know that. And there must be tools given to us in order for us to get rid of that bondage. So, every philosophy must answer these 6 must questions. If it falters, there is some problem with the particular philosophy. We're not going to criticize any philosophy, but we will talk about philosophy that will encompass all of these 6, which is what you want. And that's coming. All right. We come to now Vedas. As I mentioned to you, Vedas are called the unwritten knowledge, also called as Sphota. There are 4 major, or only 4 Vedas called Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. Each Veda has these 2 sections. Veda Purva section, which deals predominantly the actions that human beings have to perform. Therefore, it is called Karma Kandam. Kandam means chapter, karma is action. The portion that deals with karma is the Veda Purva section. And in that, there are 3 subsections called mantras, which are basically prayers. For what? For diagnosing the problem that human beings have. Brahmanas is the second subsection. It gives you the activities that you can do, called the Karma Yoga, for the removal of the impurities, which really prevents you from knowing who you are. That's Brahmanas. So the practice of Karma Yoga comes from Brahmanas. Then comes the Aranyakas. Aranyakas are considered to be the Upasana Yoga, which is meant for removing the turbulence that is caused inside your mind because of the friction between the SRT factors. And I mentioned to you, constantly the SRT is having friction between each other. To subside, to make it calm, you need to resort to Upasana Yoga. So every Veda, i.e. Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, will have the Veda Purva section, will also cover mantras, Brahmanas, and Aranyakas. Every Veda, therefore, will have also the end portion of the Vedas called the Veda Anta portion, which deals only with the knowledge. The knowledge that you require to eliminate the ignorance that we discussed a little while ago. So Veda Anta portion does not give you any idea about what you need to perform in order to accomplish the goals of your material world. That is given to you in the Veda Purva section. There are some prayers that you can perform to accumulate wealth, to beget a child. All of those activities, Vedic related activities, are covered in the Veda Purva section of each of these Vedas. But the Veda Anta portion, again, rituals, sacrifices, oblations to the gods, varieties of gods, they all form part of the Veda Purva section. In the Veda Anta section, there's nothing of what is stated in the Veda Purva section. And to become empowered, self-independent, you have to move from Veda Purva to Veda Anta section. That is why we are talking about applied Vedanta, because that is what is going to give you the power to become self-independent. But if you say, I am so dependent, I cannot come out of this dependence, then you shall stay within the Veda Purva section at all. No qualms, no imposition. You can continue, because you need to now switch over from the idea of dependence to becoming independent. And that you have to move from the Veda Purva section, and Veda Anta section will teach you that. Unfortunately, people who teach mantras, brahmanas, and aranyakas do not ever mention about the Vedanta portion. Therefore, people are struggling within that Veda Purva section in the material world, not realizing that there is something which can provide me with a permanent relief and peace. And therefore, they are just going in circles within the Veda Purva section. So the question that you may ask is, why was the Veda Purva section built in at all in Vedas? And the reason for that is because if I tell you straight away, come from A to B without understanding A, then you will not understand B at all. Therefore, Veda Purva is as important as the Veda Anta section. But once you have completed 11th grade or 12th grade, you are already in university. You don't want to go back to the 12th grade, would you? So Veda Purvam and Veda Antam are something that you cannot avoid. You have to go through the Veda Purva, but eventually you have to come to the Vedanta portion. Vedanta schools. So in Vedanta, which is the end portion, there are 3 schools that you must know. One is called the Dvaitam, that's the duality, dualism. Another is called the Advaitam, which is non-dualism. And the third is Visishtadvaitam, which is qualified non-dualism. Dvaitam is very clear, duality. Me and you. That's that. Here, particularly, the reference is between me and God. It says, God and you cannot be the same. God always has a different place than you, so you be one step lower than the God. The reference is to God here, Dvaitam. Also, understanding is, Dvaitam is the world of duality, and you require duality in the physical world. Otherwise, you cannot do transactions. But do you really require to segregate yourself from God is the question that we will deal with later on. Advaitam is non-dual. Here, God and you are one. The question is, who is the God? That is the non-dualism. In non-dualism, there's only one entity called the consciousness. All others are matter principle. There's only one consciousness, which is the God here. Rest all part of the matter principle. So anything other than consciousness, if you consider that to be God, it's part of the matter principle. Now you, as individual, I had mentioned to you, you are a bundle of body, mind, and consciousness. You can either choose to be part of the body, mind, or you can say, no, I'm not interested in body, mind, which is fake, which has got no self-independent existence. It is depending on the consciousness. Therefore, I am the consciousness only, because that is the real entity that you have. That is your identification. But if you identify yourself with the body and mind, it's not permanent. It's incidental. It's not intrinsic. Intrinsic nature for you is the consciousness. And that consciousness is one. Therefore, God, you, everybody is one. From the point of view of consciousness, not from the point of view of the body. This is where the clarity has to come. We, as Advaita Vedantam, are not talking about body, mind at all. We are talking about that one single entity called the consciousness, which is my real identity, and therefore my identity, your identity cannot be different from each other. You, me, God's identity, which also has this consciousness, everybody is saved from the point of view of consciousness. Visishtadvaita agrees partially about this exclusivity of the consciousness, but it still thinks that God is different. God alone is different. All other things are okay, but God alone is different. That is Visishtadvaita. It is enough to know about the three schools. Just as academic information, we have provided that for you. We now come to the genius, who is the genius of the Advaita Vedanta philosophy school, Shankaracharya, Param Guru, my Param Guru, 788 to 820 BCE. A philosophical genius. At the age of 8, he was a master of 4 Vedas. At 12, professor of all Shastras, Vedic rules, manuals, all of them. At 16, an interpreter and a commentator of 10 Upanishads. Upanishads, incidentally, are the Vedantam. Vedantam is all classified as Upanishads. And Shankaracharya commented on 10 of those Upanishads. And at 32, he became a sage, greatest sage. Upanishad, you need to have a little bit understanding. There are available right now about 108. I really don't know where this number has come from, but there is an Upanishad called the Muktiko Upanishad that talks about Upanishads. It's a dialogue between Rama and Hanuman. And in that, this is all covered, that 108 are available, of which 11, not 10, are principal Upanishads. Because of the 11, 10 Upanishads have got the interpretation and commentary of the sage Jagadguru Shankaracharya. This much is enough. Advaita Shantam. I think I will come to this Advaita Shantam in our next session, because this is an important information that we must all have. Advaita Shantam means only in non-dual status you can get that peace that we are talking about. Aham Satyam, Aham Purnam, Aham Nityamukta Swarupam, Aham Shantam, Aham Premam, Aham Nityananda Swarupam. That concept comes in Advaita Vedanta.